Okay, taking a look under the hood of this Chevy Silverado here, we have the 5.3 liter V8. This does use a individual coil per cylinder method. It is not coil on plug. You can see here, this is our ignition coil. We do have spark plug wires, and then our spark plugs live right there between the exhaust manifold. See, we have 4 there. And on the other side, we have a cover that covers them, but they operate the same way. You got 4 coils, 4 spark plug wires, and then the spark plugs live down in there, if you can kind of see. Right there. Just as a quick comparison, here's another Chevy product. This is a 2011 Chevy Equinox with the 2.4 liter. And this, as you can see, has coil on plug construction for their ignition systems. Rather than having the coil separate with wires that run off of it down to the side of the motor, the spark plugs, the coil pack, which is this right here on top, is wired directly onto the spark plug and sends it straight down in, rather than running it through a wire. Okay, so I have one of our spark plug wires removed. I pulled it off at this side right there, the front cylinder. As you can see, we are right about 4.1 kilo ohms. So 4.1 or 4,100 ohms. It kind of is changing because as my hand shakes a little bit, it changes the contact between the inside of the wire and the leads. But that is roughly what our resistance is for that. About 4.06 kilo ohms. While I have that spark plug wire removed, I thought I'd show you guys a better look at one of our spark plugs down there. You can see that's where they live, just on the bottom of the head, just underneath the exhaust manifold. Every single one of them will be down there, just at different spacings, along until you get to the back of the motor. Okay, so we're going to take a look at some of our circuits here on our coil. As you can see here, we are on ignition coil 1, as we are on cylinder 1, bank 1. Our violet with dark blue wire is our full-time power. Our dark blue with violet, pin 3, is PCM control. And then looking further beneath it, our black is our full-time ground for our driver circuit, and then, or solid state driver, which is part of the coil. And then our dark blue with black with dark blue is our low reference back for the PCM. So this side of the circuit here, pins 1 and 4, are full-time power and full-time ground. That powers our coil driver, or I should say our coil device, because it is internally regulated or internally ignited. And then this here is our trigger from the PCM. This is our driver that commands it on, and when that closes, it allows for the coil to send the primary voltage through to the secondary voltage. So probed in here, as you can see, we have 12.27 volts on that dark violet with dark blue wire, which is our pin 4 here. This is our full-time power. Our full-time ground for that would be the farthest opposite on the other side, and our 2 middle pins are our command from the PCM. Okay, so right now I have the picoscope hooked up to our number 1 cylinder right here. The blue trace, as you can see, is probed into the number 1 coil pack, so bank 1, cylinder 1. And it is probed into the command wire from the PCM that tells it to fire the coil. As you see here on our screen, we can see that trace and the square wave signal as it fires that specific coil pack. You see it there, it fires it once, there it fires it again, and there it fires it again. And that is about a 5-volt circuit, as you can see here. Not only am I probed into this coil, I've also probed into the number 3 coil. So bank 1, this is cylinder 3. And that is in the feedback wire that goes back to the PCM. So, taking a look over here at the Pico, you can see this is our feedback wave of every time a coil fires. So, if I go ahead and zoom in a little bit on our traces here, you can see that we get about, it's a little over 1 volt there, maybe like 1.2 volts. And you can see the spark signal as it fires a coil pack. put a little more time on our screen, we can see it fires, when it fires every single individual coil, and that puts enough counter electromotive force back into that feedback wire so the PCM knows that that coil has fired. So now that we both know what that looks like with them separate, let's compare them together. You can see here our blue trace is still on our number 1 coil driver circuit, and that red is still on our feedback to the PCM. So this is on the command from the PCM to turn it on. This is on our low reference back to the PCM. So this is shared among every coil pack, which is why we see so many spikes. And we can see here it fires the number 1 coil, and then our firing order, 8, 7, so on and so forth, until it starts back over at 1 and continues from there. So looking at this, if I come over to the engine over here, and you'll have to bear with me because I'm kind of short. If I unplug our number 7 coil, we should see that feedback has disappeared. So this is our number 7 coil right here. So 1, 8, I guess our firing order is not 187, it's 18 and then something else, because this is not a standard small block Chevy. But right here, see our number 7 coil has disappeared. If I get back over here and plug it back in, like so, our engine speed picks back up, and that trace has come back. Now, one test you could do to see if a coil is firing or not, if you had a Pico, is if you know this is your number 1 cylinder, and you have a miss on your number 1 cylinder, you can see if the coil is being commanded to fire by if you have this line or if you have this line. So I'm gonna go ahead and unplug our number 1 coil, which is right here, without hopefully bumping the circuit. So we're good. And as you can see on here, I've separated our 2 wavelengths out just so we can see a little better. It's the same scales, they're just not overlaid. And as you can see, we have our command for our number 1 coil. So the PCM is telling it, fire this coil. As you can see here, we do not have feedback from it. So it knows that that coil is not firing. And if I go ahead, walk over here and plug it back in, as such, that trace comes back and the PCM is happy again.